The dazzling lights of America's Got Talent shimmered across the massive theater as the audience buzzed with excitement. The giant LED screen behind the stage displayed the show's logo, while the judges, Simon Cowell, Heidi Klum, Sofia Vergara, and Howie Mandel, settled into their seats, ready for the next act. The crowd quieted as the stage door opened and a small figure walked out. It was a boy, maybe 14 years old, wearing a plain white shirt, jeans, and holding a well-worn acoustic guitar. His name was Miguel Santos, and though he looked nervous, there was a quiet determination in his eyes. He stepped up to the microphone, glancing briefly at the huge crowd before focusing on the judges. "Hello." Simon greeted with his signature grin. "What's your name, young man?" "My name is Miguel," the boy replied softly, his Filipino accent clear but steady. "I'm from the Philippines." The audience cheered at the mention of his country. Heidi leaned forward. "Wow, all the way from the Philippines. What will you be singing for us today?" Miguel hesitated for a moment, then said, "I'll be singing Hotel California, by the Eagles." A murmur rippled through the crowd. It was a bold, iconic choice, one even seasoned singers hesitated to tackle. Simon raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "That's a tough song," he said. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" Miguel took a deep breath, gripping his guitar. "Yes, sir. This is for my family back home." The lights dimmed, and the spotlight fell solely on him. The audience hushed. For a heartbeat, everything was still, then Miguel strummed the first note. The audition had begun, and the room held its breath. As the first gentle strum echoed through the theater, a ripple of surprise passed through the audience. Miguel's fingers moved gracefully over the strings, producing a warm, melodic sound that filled the silent hall. His eyes closed for a moment, centering himself, and then, he began to sing. "On a dark desert highway, cool wind in my hair." The tone of his voice was rich, soulful, and far more mature than anyone expected from a 14-year-old. Every note carried emotion, longing, nostalgia, and quiet power. The crowd, which moments ago had been bustling with whispers, now sat completely still, drawn in by his calm command of the stage. Even the camera crew seemed to move more quietly, not wanting to break the spell. Simon Cowell, known for his sharp critiques, tilted his head slightly, his usual smirk fading into focus. Heidi smiled softly, mouthing, "Wow," to Sophia. The melody continued, Miguel's voice rising and falling with the smooth rhythm of the guitar. He sang not as a contestant chasing fame, but as a storyteller sharing something deeply personal. When he reached the chorus, "Welcome to the Hotel California," his voice soared, echoing beautifully through the theater. The audience began swaying, many raising their phones to capture the moment. In that instant, Miguel seemed transformed. The shy boy who walked on stage moments earlier was now gone, replaced by a confident young artist in full control of his gift. Every lyric was heartfelt, every chord perfectly timed. By the time he reached the bridge, a faint cheer rose from the back rows. People were already sensing that something special was unfolding. Miguel opened his eyes briefly, saw the glowing faces before him, and smiled. He was exactly where he was meant to be. As Miguel reached the middle of Hotel California, the audience was completely captivated. The gentle rhythm of his guitar flowed effortlessly, and his voice, steady yet emotional, carried through every corner of the theater. But then, something unexpected happened. Miguel began to add his own touch to the song. When the famous guitar solo arrived, he closed his eyes and strummed with passion, his fingers gliding across the strings like they were part of him. Instead of copying the original, he played a softer, more soulful version, blending the classic melody with his own improvisations. The sound was hauntingly beautiful. Then, as he moved into the final verse, Miguel did something bold. He sang a few lines in Tagalog, his native language. The audience gasped in surprise. The familiar tune suddenly took on a new flavor, warm, heartfelt, and deeply personal. His words, though foreign to many, carried pure emotion that needed no translation. The judges exchanged stunned glances. Simon leaned forward, resting his chin on his hand, completely mesmerized. Heidi and Sophia smiled widely, and Howie whispered, "This kid is something special." Miguel's voice swelled as he returned to English for the final chorus. "You can check out any time you like, but you can never leave." The last note lingered in the air like a memory that refused to fade. For a few seconds, the theater was utterly silent, no one even breathed. Then, as Miguel lowered his guitar, the audience exploded into applause and cheers. People stood up, clapping, shouting his name. Miguel looked up, tears glimmering in his eyes. He smiled shyly, overwhelmed by the sound of thousands cheering just for him. It was a moment he would never forget. As the final note of Hotel California faded into silence, the entire theater erupted. The audience leapt to their feet, cheering and clapping wildly. Miguel stood frozen in the center of the stage, breathing heavily, his guitar still in his hands. For a moment, he looked overwhelmed, a mix of disbelief and joy lighting up his young face. Simon Cowell was the first to speak, though it took several seconds before the noise died down enough for him to be heard. "Miguel," he began, his voice softer than usual. "That was pure magic. You didn't just sing a song, you told a story. You made one of the greatest classics your own." Miguel's eyes shimmered with emotion. He bowed his head slightly, whispering, "Thank you, sir." Heidi leaned in, smiling brightly. "You have such soul in your voice. It's rare, even in grown singers." Sophia nodded in agreement. "And that smile, you lit up the whole stage." Simon looked thoughtful for a moment, glancing toward the audience, then back at Miguel. "You know, I've been doing this show for a long time," he paused, a faint grin curling on his lips. "And every once in a while, someone walks in and changes everything." Before anyone could react, he slammed his palm onto the golden buzzer. A burst of gold confetti exploded from above, raining down like glittering stars. The crowd screamed in delight as Miguel gasped, covering his face in shock. His mother ran from backstage, tears streaming, wrapping him in a tight embrace. Simon stood and clapped proudly as the other judges joined him, all smiling warmly. Miguel looked around through the shower of gold, tears in his eyes, realizing, his dream had just come true. Backstage, the air was electric. Miguel stood surrounded by gold confetti that clung to his hair and clothes. His mother held him tightly, still crying with joy, while crew members and producers congratulated him as he stepped off the stage. His heart was still pounding from the shock. The moment Simon Cowell had hit the golden buzzer replayed over and over in his mind. An interviewer from America's Got Talent approached with a bright smile and a microphone. "Miguel, that was incredible. How are you feeling right now?" Miguel took a deep breath, his voice trembling slightly. I can't believe it. This is like a dream. I just wanted to make my family proud, and my country, too. I didn't think this would happen." Behind him, a screen replayed his performance in slow motion, the powerful notes, the stunned faces of the judges, and Simon's decisive slam on the golden buzzer. Social media was already lighting up with clips of his audition, comments pouring in from around the world. "This boy gave me chills. Proud to be Filipino. One of the best auditions ever." Simon walked backstage a few minutes later, still smiling. "Miguel," he said, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder, "you've got something special, something real. Don't ever lose that." Miguel nodded, eyes shining. "Thank you, sir. I won't." As the episode ended, the cameras captured one final image, Miguel standing beneath the golden confetti, his guitar in hand, looking up toward the stage lights. The crowd's cheers echoed faintly behind him. That night, headlines around the world would read, "Filipino Teens Hotel California wins the Golden Buzzer, and America's Heart." Miguel's journey had only just begun.